So I was making IMO for our farm, which I was doing very regularly. At that time, we were in a whole system where we, sprayed liquid IMO all the time, and so I'm using up my materials. Liquid IMO is taking IMO and brewing it in a actively aerated manner, and I was running out, so I had to make some more. I went to my feedstock, my material that I was making it on, and it had a bunch of weevils in it, which I was like, oh no, it's gone bad. But I'm like, you know what? It's going to take me 2 weeks to get more of this material. I need it now. How bad really are weevils? So it's like, whatever. Made my IMO. I had all this IMO2 from the mountains, all these different places, a bunch of different inoculum, and then I had this material full of weevils, rice bran and macadamia nut shell and kernel, and so I started making it. Everything's going as I would expect normally happens. Bunch of fungi is produced, but there was something interesting in that there was a fungi of a different color blooming in a perfect sphere, these little puff balls throughout the process. And I was like, that's interesting. Never seen that before. Start looking at it, poking at it, observing. And at the center of each puffball is a weevil. It's like, oh, super interesting. Really busy. I'm managing our farm. I have a lot on my plate. And so I didn't stop. I just said, that's cool. Went on, made liquid IMO, sprayed it on 20 acres. Um, you know, and the next day I'm out there. As a good farmer, I'm observing how my plants reacted to my spray. This is really important, basic farming. But um, I get out there, and on the tree, in the nook of a tree, is one of those little white puff balls that I was seeing in my IMO3. And for me, at that moment, I was like, oh. And I had, a week-long deep dive into research on who are the predators of beetles and how does this all work. And what I learned about what had happened is I had somehow, in my IMO2 collecting, ended up with, or on the weevils themselves in their environment, I had ended up with a predatory fungi, a fungi that eats the chitin or the exoskeleton of those beetles. Um, uh, uh, Weevil is a little beetle, and the green stink bug that I saw in my tree covered in um, fungi was also a beetle. Um, and so there's these predatory fungi that eat that specific protein made in exoskeletons of creatures. And I had created or cultivated an environment where they could multiply. And then in spraying them out over 20 acres, I had now inoculated my orchard with this beneficial, for me, um, uh, microbial community. And so I was pretty stoked. And at the same time, I'm like, well, I don't have to do anything. There was nothing more for me to do to make use of this technology. I had a 200 pounds of it ready to go into tea and go out on my farm. I'm like, I'm good. That's great. We have passively created a pressure on our prime, um, our prime pest for our crop. Our crop, macadamia nuts, the premier or worst crop or pest we've ever had, has been green stink bug. We had almost were out of business years ago. Before I was managing, I was off at school. We had an 80% crop failure due to stink bug. So to have this thing we're already doing that's creating drastic change in the health of our trees and really helping our farm be able to afford enough nutrition to make this all work at the same time without spending a dollar more, I am now creating or having passive pressure pests. I was stoked. So I put that away in my pocket, and I didn't pull it out again until my friend Steve Reisner had a problem in Zimbabwe with locusts. They were the whole farm. He was on like a 700-acre farm, and he was running a 100-acre hemp project. And he's like, "Hey, this year the grasshoppers are killing everything. The farm edge of the farm is starting to get devastated. We're gonna get wiped out. Do you have anything for this?" And I said, "Well, no, nothing I learned from Master Cho, but this one thing did happen." And I talked him through it. He did it, and he had 100% kill. Um, every farm around him on his project still got devastated with locusts. His hemp project had zero problems, and he had observable predation by fungi in this project. So he's now trialed it in a bunch of different places in the world. I've played with it a bunch of different places, and it's become pretty much standard operating procedure for a bunch of these canna farmers.